I'd like to call to order.
Sorry. Go ahead.
All right, now I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. Welcome, everybody. First item is public comment. Do we have anybody in the public who wishes to comment? Is there anybody online? There's not. Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda? We have a pretty basic agenda today. I think we might even be able to finish early. We'll see. We'll go out and enjoy the day. We have minutes from April 23rd, 2024. Could I get a motion on the minutes? Mike moves. Shauna seconds. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none. We could do a hand vote because Lee's not. Okay. All those in favor? All right. None opposed. That's unanimous. Chair's report. I do not have a chair's report today, so we can move on to county administration. And Lisa, welcome.
Thank you, Rich. I just have one really brief update and a piece of good news that I share together with the Sheriff's Office, and that is we were notified this morning that the Corrections Union ratified the successor contract. So we will be bringing a resolution forward. I guess it goes to Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee and then on to the full legislature. And we're very, very pleased that, that we have a new contract with our corrections unit. We've been out of contract since 2018.
Yes, I agree with you. This is very good news. And I remember this was one of the first issues that came up when I joined the legislature, and the negotiations were going on then, and then they didn't go anywhere. I know how much work this has been, Lisa, so thank you for all the effort put in by administration and by the representatives of the corrections officers to get to an agreement. And Sheriff and Under Sheriff Olin, thank you too. That's great. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
All you have. Okay, any questions or comments for the county administrator? One item we were going to talk about today was the Community Justice Center, but you've indicated you'd like some more time and are planning on presenting on that in the June meeting. That's
correct, yes, thank you.
All right. We can move on to the Sheriff's Office, and welcome, Sheriff.
Thanks, Rich. I don't have a lot either. I think coming back today after the holiday weekend, we started off like a crazy Monday on a Tuesday, so forgive us. You have our printed report. We have a few things in there. We had a deputy sheriff graduate recently. There's a number of community events we took part in, a number of trainings that are listed there, all good things. We also, meaning the undersheriff and I, did travel to Albany this past month and did a presentation at the Vine Conference through the Sheriff's Association that's consisting of a lot of victim advocate type resources. Presented on the care team, it was very well received, and we're actually going back to do another presentation soon to the Undersheriff's Conference. So it's getting a lot of attention statewide. We're really happy with that. And I think that's all I have, Rich. Okay.
Questions or comments for our sheriff? All right. I did have a couple myself, but I'd let anybody else go first. One thing I was just looking at in your report, and thank you for your report, was on page 14 in the Corrections Division statistics, disciplinary incidents. And I was wondering, what rises to the level of a disciplinary incident in the jail? What kind of activity would merit that making your report?
Let me get to that page. Rich, give me 1 second.
It would be, it's mostly rule book violations. So when an incarcerated person comes into the facility, they're issued a rule book with the expectations of the facility. So if they violated one of those rules, that's usually something that might lead to a disciplinary hearing.
Okay. And I assume it could be up from there. It could be somebody getting violent or difficult in other ways, but it can be
Right.
fairly
That's-
minor too.
That's covered in our rule book violation. So yeah, it could stem from anything from, hoarding, items that they're not supposed to have, maybe a limited amount of items in their cell, maybe something as minor as that, to assaulting another incarcerated person, to assaulting staff. So there's a wide variety of rules.
Okay. And then you have a resolution, and I had a question on that, but why don't we get that on the floor? That's on page 19. Could I get somebody to move the resolution? Mike moves, Veronica seconds. This is authorization to accept New York State Canal Corporation Marine Patrol Grant 2024-2025, Doc ID 12384. I'm sorry, I should have read that first before I asked for a motion on it. My question was, do we have the match in the budget? Is that already in your budget for 24?
I believe the match comes from time on the water as far as salary. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, but when people go out, then we get reimbursed for some of their overtime or time that they spent out on the lake.
Yes, and if Norma's there, she could probably speak better to it. But when we draft the budget, we try to build anticipated revenue in from these grants that we get in previous years. Sometimes it can be hard to guess, but this one's pretty consistent.
Okay, and I was curious, the Marine patrols, do you find them, are they effective? Do they make a difference?
They make a huge difference. Many years ago, we used to have the navigation unit out quite a bit throughout the week in the summertime weekends. Now we pretty much just do it in emergency situations, big events, holiday weekends, things of that nature. So yeah, people do look forward to seeing our patrols out there. It is definitely needed. We've learned from experiences in the past when they're not, things can get out of hand at times. So yeah, it is a very good thing, and I think the community does appreciate us out there, and there is a huge benefit to it.
Okay, Veronica.
Norma is not here, so about the budget details. In the resolution, it's got this line of $20,000 in revenue and also $20,000 in appropriation, and I don't quite know which way these are flowing. But is that $20,000 of appropriation labeled regular pay the match you were referring to of people's time on the water? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure.
I think the revenue is the grant, and then they're putting it into they're appropriating it into the regular pay line, but Lisa, correct me.
That's correct.
Okay. Does that make sense?
I guess so. So $20,000 is flowing from the outside world into this other public safety account. And then that same $20,000 is going into this
That's where it's landing is.
regular pay account?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask follow-up questions later because that is confusing. But
Okay. All right, Mike.
I was just going to ask, I was out driving on Saturday, and since we were talking about Marine Patrol, and I saw an overturned boat, and I stopped, and they said the police had already been there. Was that you guys? Who was that?
Yeah, that was us. We responded out there. I believe it was a sailboat that was overturned.
But there was like a rescue and stuff, right? Like you pulled people from the water and stuff. So.
Yeah, I honestly can't tell you, Mike, if we pulled them out of the water, but yeah, we did aid them. We did come to their assistance and get that situation corrected.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else for the sheriff? All right. We can move on. We have our district attorney with us. I see Matt is there. Welcome.
We didn't vote on the resolution.
Thank you, Brittany.
You're welcome.
See, I'm moving too fast. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right, thank you. Now we can move on to our district attorney. Oh, I did have one more question on that. On page 21, it indicates that you have to execute a contract with Washington County. Why is Washington County involved? Do you know?
I believe that letter just had a simple typo in it, Rich. I think they awarded funds to different counties and they just left that in there for our letter. Yeah, that's
Okay.
come up before.
All right.
That's how
I was thinking something deep is happening here.
I'm sure they're lovely in Washington County, but we're not sharing any of our grant funds with them. No.
Okay, so that should have been Tompkins. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That now makes sense. All right, welcome, Matt.
All right, thanks, Rich. I appreciate you taking me. I mentioned to you this morning, I'm in trial just on the lunch break for till 2 o'clock, so I've got to pitch my resolution and then go eat some lunch. So I did want to address the resolution that relates to the deputy district attorney position.
Yes, why don't we get that on the floor and you can speak to it. Could I get a motion on, this is appropriation from contingent fund and budget adjustments to various accounts of the Tompkins County District Attorney, Doc ID 12405. Can I get a motion? Veronica moves. Do I have a second? Mike seconds. Okay, yeah, Matt, why don't you talk to this?
All right, thank you. So we did talk about this a little bit at the budget committee, and there were some questions about it specifically related to funding, which I think were answered in the sense that this is going to ask for some funding that came from a grant from the DCJS, Division of Criminal Justice Services, for last fiscal year. We expect that grant to be the same going into the next fiscal year, which is, I think we should get the grant notification anytime now. But essentially that grant, the aid to prosecution grant, is supposed to be for helping retain attorneys, helping compensate attorneys in this especially competitive environment where it's so difficult to retain experienced attorneys in DA's offices across the state. It also reflects my desire to have a succession plan by establishing a second deputy district attorney's position that will help me with some of the administrative tasks that come with the job. We all have full caseloads here, so that's something it's specific to DA's offices of my size or a little higher in terms of residents. But when you get to 200,000 residents, then DAs don't take cases; they become administrators, and they're more directly involved with the administration side and not the litigation side. So when I looked for comparisons that Shauna asked for at the budget meeting, it's tough to find comparisons of like counties that have more than one deputy DA. But I think what this ultimately comes down to is trying to retain highly compensated or highly qualified and experienced attorneys that benefits our county. And looking at other counties, we are understaffed we're compared to almost every other similarly sized or neighboring county when it comes to number of prosecutors per 10,000 residents. Many counties have significantly more DAs than we do. For example, Chemung County has 85,000 people, has 10 ADAs. We have 105,000 people, we have 8 ADAs. Ontario County has 110,000 people and 15 ADAs. Warren County has 65,000 people and 9 ADAs. Jefferson County has 114,000 people and 12 ADAs. So we're understaffed, and we are short-staffed at this point. We're down one attorney. So the difficulties of retaining these experienced attorneys and the risk of losing them to higher compensated private jobs is the main motivation for wanting to present this to the legislature.
Okay. Is it possible Tompkins County is just more law-abiding than our neighbors? We do better?
No.
I'm kidding.
In fact, we spend more attorney hours on ATIs. Those ATIs take much longer to handle as attorneys than a traditional prosecution where somebody goes to jail or was put on probation. In those cases, which are indicative of some of the surrounding counties, the DA's personnel is done. They don't have any monitoring or interaction with that person as we try to help them in our county do through our ATIs.
Right, right. I guess I have a serious question, which is, if it's a staffing issue, you're not asking for more headcount, you're asking for better compensation for the numbers you have. Are you thinking that you can do more with better paid employees, or what's your thinking there? Or in the next budget cycle, are you going to come back and ask for another headcount?
Well, I do think that we can do more with better qualified attorneys, more experienced attorneys. If I could have 8 assistants who are all as experienced as the people I'm looking to retain, that would be the best case for our county. Back in 2017, when I pitched getting another ADA, I used these numbers, and they were not as skewed as they are now, to show that, in other words, we were less understaffed then than we are now in comparison to what other counties have done. But I'm not going to come back and ask for another assistant. I'm just looking to keep the ones that I have.
Okay. Shauna.
So I still have concerns about the fact that we're changing a position from an assistant district attorney to having 2 deputies in your department whenever many of our departments have 50, 60 employees and we don't have 2 deputies. And so it continues to reaffirm the fact that I think this would make your department really, really top heavy. And I know you mentioned that you're adding this position to perhaps even keep an employee, but we typically don't do that. Like we don't form job descriptions. We don't change positions to accommodate our employees. Like, we should be hiring employees to meet our job descriptions. With that said, I'm also concerned about the fact that you're making this change, and you had mentioned succession, that you might have someone that's leaving within 2 years. We typically don't. We do succession planning, and I'm fond of that, but typically we do it 1 year out. We don't hire people 2 years in advance to do a succession plan. I understand this is grant money, and so we feel a little bit more liberal about how we spend it, but I also think that if you have a pot of money, either you can hire someone that makes, let's just say, $150,000, or you could hire other well-skilled people, and you could have more. And I understand what you're saying also, Matt, about hiring quality people that have experience. I guess I just have a really hard time with the structure of your department and it looking really top heavy whenever, as legislators, we're talking about doing a 5% cut in each one of our departments, which will inevitably affect our staff. So I won't be voting for this.
Anybody else? I supported this at budget, and I'm inclined to support it again. Shauna, I take your points, but I also think we need to let Matt run his department. He's in that very different category of being an independently elected official, and with some real responsibility for making sure we have an effective district attorney's office doing prosecutions. So I'm going to defer to his judgment on this one, and I will support. Mike or Veronica, did you want to be heard?
No, you both bring up very valid points. I mean, it's certainly something to consider. So.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Or Veronica?
I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of what Shauna just said and what Matt just said. Maybe I missed some of it. You're talking about, so this resolution is this resolution creating a new position, but also the idea is that it will be filled by someone currently in another position, and then that position will remain unfilled until no particular time, is that correct?
Yes, we have plenty of vacancies that for civil service purposes are vacant, but our staffing would stay exactly the same.
Okay.
So you're right, one person would be going from currently filled position to this new position.
Okay, thanks. And I guess maybe a question for Shauna. You had a point about we should hire people to match job descriptions, not change job descriptions to match people. And that totally makes sense, certainly when finding new people. But I guess, can you explain that a little more if you have, generally speaking, I don't know the specifics here, but if you have a person who already is working for you and is like, you can tell that they should, could, would maybe be doing more than what they were hired to do because, people change, grow, develop, the needs change. Wouldn't we want to accommodate that to keep our good people?
Yeah, I think absolutely, but I also think that whenever you have a department of 7 people, is that right, Matt? You have 7 employees in your department?
No, I'm supposed to have 8 assistant DAs, including myself, and then there's 9 other people.
Okay.
So it's 17 people.
Okay, so how many attorneys do you have?
9, including myself.
So you have 9 attorneys, and then you're talking about having 3 in management positions. That's really, really top-heavy whenever you're looking at structure. And, I agree. We do try and accommodate as much as possible, and if that person's on a track to move up within our organization, then we want to support that. But I'm not sure that we would do that at the expense of adding a position indefinitely to pay for future years. And then I'm also not sure about the fact that we're telling our departments, we want you to cut 5% so that we don't raise everyone's taxes across the board. So I think it has to be a really fine balance. And I think the optics of it looks really awful, quite honestly. And for me personally, Rich, you had mentioned, it's Matt's department, and I definitely want to respect that, but I also respect the fact that we're the ones that decide where the money goes. That's our job. And our job is also a policy. And so whenever we talk about the electeds, that's how we control expenses. That's our job. And I think, we all take that really seriously.
Yeah, certainly. I would mention, though, that as Matt said, these people carry full caseloads. So they're not really administrators comparable to a lot of other departments where they don't actually do the hands-on work. But anyway, Mike.
That you just answered one of my questions, and my second question was, and you probably already answered this, Matt, where are we caseload-wise compared to, 4 years ago, or compared to when you got elected?
Well, it's hard to compare numbers to numbers because the more ATIs we have, the more time it takes to monitor them.
What's an ATI?
When I had extra ADA, we didn't have mental health court. Now we do. That takes a full-time attorney on the case management team. We didn't have lead back then. That's another attorney engaged in the lead team. We have drug court. So all those things take more time for us than the traditional prosecution model.
Yeah. Alternatives to incarceration.
Yeah, I couldn't put that together off the fly.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Further discussion? All right. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? All those opposed? 3-1, it passes. All right. Thank you, Matt. Do you have anything else for us?
Thanks, Rich. We are still looking to fill the 9th attorney spot, and that's going slowly. It's very competitive out there. Otherwise, we've got trials scheduled. I'm in the middle of one right now. So
I was going to ask about the state of trials going on in the county. How are they proceeding?
They're proceeding well. We had one 2 weeks ago. We're in one now. We've got one starting June 3rd, June 10th, on into the fall.
Okay, several years ago now, we had a real push to get a 3rd county court judge. I assume that that's speeding up the process quite a bit to have that capability.
I think it is.
What would be then slowing down the pace of trials? What's the limitation at this point that you see, if any?
Well, there's still only the ability to run one trial at a time. So the competition for the courtroom, for juries, that's probably a factor. We often settle cases on the very last minute. People tend to. There's been a strategy recently of waiting until the eve of trial to decide whether they want a trial or not. So various factors, but we're able to give people a trial. This case I'm in right now happened in September of 2023, and it's going to trial as we speak, so.
Okay. All right, anything further for our district attorney? All right. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Rich.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
And next up is the Department of Emergency Response. And there's Michael. Welcome.
So I really just have one thing, and then I'll ask Joe to kind of just give an update on EMS program. So the structural work at the backup center was slated to be done on June the 6th. We learned today that there is a back order on the trusses that are necessary to structurally separate the two sections of building. So it's now looking like it's going to be towards the end of June. We'll hopefully know more next week as to the status of the trusses and their expected delivery date, but we just have another setback with regards to the completion of the backup center. So, and then I thought, Joe could give an overview of where we are with the EMS program and then answer any questions, Rich.
Okay. Well, before we go further, I wanted to pass this on to my fellow legislators. I attended the award ceremony last Friday, and we got an award, a certificate of appreciation to the Tompkins County Legislature for their assistance in establishing Tompkins County EMS. And that was a very nice ceremony. We were in among all the other awards for EMS workers who had done good things in the past year. I don't know, Joe, were you going to speak to that?
Sure, I can. Friday, we presented our awards. We also acknowledged not just the legislator, but all the other individuals throughout Tompkins County and Central New York that assisted in setting up Tompkins County EMS. I don't have the list of recipients right here, but we did award, off the top of my head, Nick Domster from Bangs Ambulance won ALS Provider of the Year. Steve Foote from McLean Fire Department and Dryden Ambulance won BLS Provider of the Year. Susan Flynn from Bangs, who through the rumor mill I found out is retiring this year, won the Tim Bangs Lifetime Achievement Award for her 35 plus years of service to Bangs Ambulance. Jill Cadbury from Trumansburg and Dryden Ambulance won the EMS Award of Excellence for his 30 plus years of EMS service to this county. A crew from Groton, including myself, Joe Doing, Matt Whitaker, and Lee Shurtleff won the EMS Crew of the Year for a save that they had back in August. And Enfield Rescue won Agency of the Year.
Okay.
So we were very excited to pass those out and look forward to another year to be able to do that again.
It was a nice ceremony, and I think that's a good thing to do the recognition. This was the second year, you said?
Yes. Yeah, this is the first year that we held a ceremony. Last year, Justin and Jess went around and, Mike and Jess went around and distributed the awards to the individuals, but this year we held a ceremony here for them to come to and get to acknowledge each other.
Okay.
And Rich, we do something similar for the fire service in October. So we did their first awards presentation last October, and we'll be doing an awards presentation for the fire service on the fire side of the house, if you will, in this October.
Okay. All right, good. Questions or comments for Department of Emergency Response?
Rich, did you want Joe to go over any of the statistics from the EMS responses?
I would. I had a question myself before we get to that page. Let's see, the page 28, the calls. It looks like we had some elevated categories, and I was just curious about those. Traffic stops seem to have gone up quite a bit. I was wondering if that's related to the GIVE grant, or these would be calls in response to 911 calls. Is that correct?
No, typically traffic stops are officer initiated. If there were a traffic complaint, then that would be something that would be called into the 911 center. Okay.
Sheriff, do you have any idea why it looks like the average is 961 and we're at 1406?
A lot of it could be related to to the give, just like you mentioned. That's definitely a major component of traffic stops are a major component of that, obviously. Jen, I believe we got any more DWI stuff going on with spring, maybe that could have contributed to that as well?
Yeah, I mean, one thing to take in consideration that traffic stops significantly reduced during COVID. So if you're looking at a 5-year average, that's going to really skew it. Traffic stops are pretty much non-existent. So that's going to be a tough one to compare.
Okay, that makes good sense. Shauna?
Yeah, I noticed that both Friday and Saturday, I'm on one of the Facebook groups that has some of the scanning, and both Friday and Saturday, the posts were all Bangs rigs are currently unavailable. Any calls will go to mutual aid. And then Saturday, it was posted that all Ithaca Fire Department units are committed, and then all Bangs units are out on calls. Can you talk about, I know that if it's Monday through Friday, I'm assuming that our county rapid response would kick in during those hours?
If it's Monday through Friday, yes. You know, and that has happened, and Joe could speak to that a little bit. There has been instances since we started the program that communities that we didn't initially think we would necessarily be going into have requested our support. So it's been great to be able to do that. The one thing I will mention is that, you know, some of what you hear on or read on Scanner Freaks, it's them getting pieces of transmission, so maybe they're not getting the full situational picture, which I'm sure you're aware of, but maybe just for others in the room. So sometimes that information is unreliable.
Sure.
It's a concern of ours, but you know, just to want to put that out there.
Okay. So if Bangs is not available, I guess how does the mutual aid flow, like on a busy Saturday night whenever they're not able to take city calls?
So it depends on where it is in the city. Dryden might do mutual aid for them. Trumansburg may do mutual aid. You know, so really within the EMS community, mutual aid is a very common practice, and it's well accepted, frankly, as well, just because, you know, resources are thin, not just here, but everywhere. So, so we do have a protocol in place with regards to who would respond to what area of the city. And frankly, it's not just the city, because Bangs does cover a large majority of the county as far as EMS. So it would also be like, say, the Danbys or Brookendale or, you know, just as an example. So, but we do have a protocol in place where we would automatically dispatch mutual aid if all the other resources are not available in our county. And that would extend, Shauna, just so you know, to as we might even call out-of-county resources too, depending on where they are. So if it's all the way down, say, in like Speedsville, you know, we might call in a Tioga County.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I had a couple other questions on page 28. One was transport by police, and the average is 26, and it was up at 75. I'm wondering, was there a reason for more transports, or is that another thing where during the pandemic, the 5-year average is not really representative?
That's a little bit of both. As you remember, we shifted the responsibility of our transports away from corrections to special patrol officers. When the corrections unit was doing them, they weren't calling out to dispatch and a number wasn't being created. Now that responsibility shifted to the road, they're calling out and numbers created. So that's, that's why you see the increase.
All right, and then finally, there's a line item for unconscious. And that hasn't really changed that much from the 5-year average, but I was curious about some of those unconscious might well also be reporting in the overdose poisoning line, that it depends on the nature of the call.
Yes. That's correct. I'm sorry.
And I was happy to see that the Whole Health has now come out with their data dashboard on overdose-related, opioid-related issues. And it does look like we're starting to put the pieces of the puzzle together a little better here. And I'm not entirely sure what my question is, other than when I was looking at this, I was saying, this is, again, a very hard thing to know, but it would be really, really helpful the better we can get at it. So I was really happy to see the Whole Health effort come through. Anyway, Then I had a question on page 29 on the siren participation. And you indicate that there are approximately 22,376 profiles. And that's, let's see, for a total of what percentage of the population? And I was wondering what is expected for a population of 105,000 roughly? Are we doing well with siren signups?
I think we are. I think we are. And I think as we continue to grow and build out the program, I think we'll get even more. But I think that that's a pretty respectable number overall.
Okay. Certainly everybody I've spoken to in the public about siren, they love it. They say this is a really, really good thing. And one thing it's done that seems sort of prosaic, but in my neighborhood, the city would do street cleaning during spring break. And the students would leave, and a lot of them would leave their cars on the street, and then the signs would go up while they weren't here, and their cars would get towed, and it's really expensive. And this was like a sign of spring, the poor people getting their cars towed away. And the siren notification seems to have helped quite a bit with that. But I hope we continue to build on that. And anyway.
And, you know, Rich, we're really leveraging that siren system even internally here as far as a county resource with, you know, our the actual county government. So we're really starting to expand its use well beyond just what we were using our previous system for. So I think that as time goes on, those numbers will certainly increase.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't we move on to page 33 and the EMS program manager statistics.
Yes, so year to date, we're at 143 calls for service for the EMS program, keeping in mind that's only Monday through Friday. What you guys have in the TomStat report is for the month of April, we completed a total of 84 calls. Our three busiest townships are the town of Lansing at 36, the town of Newfield at 17, and Caroline at 11. We did provide mutual aid services, like Mike was mentioning, to the town of Dryden twice and to the town of Groton twice. And in the month of May, we provided mutual aid services to the village of Trumansburg once. So we are venturing out into some of the areas that we didn't initially think we would capture, but as they need some assistance, they've called upon us to help them. So it's proven to be successful.
Okay, and in that center block of statistics, I didn't see the city of Ithaca there. Were there any responses to the city?
No, we have not responded into the city of Ithaca yet.
Okay, and that's roughly as expected that during the day, Monday to Friday, the coverage is pretty good in the city.
Well, it's because they also have a very good rescue program. So the Ithaca Fire Department responds into the city and into the township doing what we're doing in the rest of the county. So even say if there wasn't a BANGS unit available, there likely would be Ithaca Fire Department would be there to respond.
Okay, and then in the bottom block, the response times, if you add up dispatch to en route and travel time, that's going to give you the average response time, is that right?
Correct. So I have it broken down into how long it took them to go en route, how long it took them to get on scene, and then how long they were on scene for. So the time to click en route and the travel time added together would be from the time of dispatch to the time they arrived on scene.
Okay. Okay. It does seem that the average response time is pretty good.
Yes.
That my recollection is that nationally we're looking at trying to get to 5 minutes, and we're not that far off. Is that correct?
Correct. So the national average to for a unit to click en route is 4 minutes, and we're at just under 1 minute to click en route.
Okay. Okay. Right. It does seem like the program's doing what we want it to do, as we indicated last month, but this will bear steady viewing, I guess. Questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none? Okay. I see there's a very nice picture in the report of Senator Webb bringing money to our county. That's very nice. We like money. And I think that was it, unless anybody else has anything for emergency response. Okay, I think we're up to Department of Probation and Community Justice. Dan is with us. I see. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Yes. And Carla is here too, right? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So we have reached the part of the exercise where the state asks us to do the annual state aid plan at the same time that the county wants us to do our budget. So I've got my hair cut nice and short so I don't pull it all out. Got 3 weeks to produce those two documents, both of which are critical to the department's funding for 2025. We've got a June 5th site visit from Chris Lammerts. He's the DCJS attaché to Tompkins County for the financial end of the GIVE program. He's coming to meet with us next Wednesday. Our probation dashboard, we've been working trying to get a few little kinks out of it. I think that's ready to be reviewed by county administration so that we can announce a rollout date for that. I'm really excited about that. Chris Driscoll, who's our administrative services coordinator, has done an amazing amount of work on that, and we're really excited to be able to release that and have that transparency for the community. A month from now, Carl and I will be attending the Council of Probation Administrators Summer Conference in Oswego. Other than that, we've got an officer who completed fundamentals for probation practice in Monroe County. Will be going to her basic course for peace officer training up in Oneida County starting this month. She will again be our first new hire who's going through the basic course for peace officer program. So we're looking forward to moving her forward with that. The only other thing I believe we have is a reappropriation resolution for the park grant.
Okay. I did have a couple questions, but I see Shauna.
I'll move it.
Oh, you'll move it.
Resolution?
All right, let me read it out. Reappropriation of Park Foundation grant for the benefit of the drug courts of Tompkins County, doc ID 12385A. And Shauna moves, Veronica seconds. Is there anything you want to say about this, Dan?
These are just unspent funds from the park grant last year that we'd like to reallocate so they can continue to be used for the purposes of the drug court.
Okay, any questions or comments? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Great. Okay, I did have a couple.
Sorry if I cut you off if you wanted questions.
Yes, I do have your monthly snapshot on page 45.
Okay.
You know, it looks like the drug court, the misdemeanor drug court, it has been running only 5 participants. Are those new participants, or is that the same 5 people month on month in the court?
I believe those would be new participants. I'm trying to bring that document up.
Because my question was, is there critical mass? If there's only 5 people, that seemed like that's underutilized. And maybe 5 a month is underutilized too.
Well, since the consolidation of the drug courts, we did pull we had 2 senior probation officers in felony drug treatment court and 2 in misdemeanor city treatment court. We pulled 1 for other duties, so we now have 3 officers doing that. I'm having trouble bringing this up, so I'm going to try and do it a different way. But I believe those are 5 added this month.
Do you think that that pace matches what the need is in the community?
I think we're pretty good at screening appropriate clientele for that. It's a fairly rigorous screening process. There certainly are more than 5 people in the community that could benefit from drug court, but they may be starting out at a lower, they may not have prior probation experience, so we may be starting people out on standard probation and then using that drug court as a graduated response if they're not responsive at the lower supervision level. So just trying to be good stewards of the resource, because as Matt alluded to before, it's not just probation officers who are involved in that. It involves ADAs and counselors and defense attorneys and the judge's time as well. So we try to keep the appropriate, people with the appropriate level of need in the drug court programs. So I believe 41 is the total number of cases for the combined drug court program at this time. We just seem to be weighted a lot more heavily on felony offenders than misdemeanors at this point.
Well, and I think part of it too, Dan, might be since the drug courts merged, the process for getting defendants into misdemeanor drug court from the outlying justice courts, that process has changed and it's gotten to be a little more difficult. So I think we're all still trying to navigate our way through that. And once we really, you know, can figure out that process and get a good handle on it, we might see the numbers going back up again.
That's a good point.
Okay. So that does sound like something we should be working on. That it seems like the people struggling with some sort of pretty apparent drug problem in the community and acting out on the streets is, it's there. And yeah, I'm wondering, you said 41 is the active number right now, and that would be the combination of the misdemeanor and the felony?
That's correct.
Okay,
but that does not preclude, there are many other people who are on probation supervision because they have substance abuse problems.
Okay.
They're just not all at the level of need for drug court programming at this point. So a lot of times we'll start people at regular probation supervision if they do well, then we don't need to engage them in the higher level resource of drug court. But if it does remain there as part of a graduated response to move people up if they're not successful at the lower level of supervision.
Okay. My other question regarded day reporting, and the numbers there seem to have gone down a little bit through the course of the year so far. And is there a reason for that, or is it just random?
I can only attribute it to, it's been a slow trickle down. Initially, I mean, COVID we reduced our numbers to a maximum of 6 a day for social distancing. But I think with bail reform also, it's, day reporting is just struggling to find participants at this point. We have the capacity to supervise far more than we are seeing, and the trend has just been to that the numbers are lower and lower every year, to the point where some days we'll only have 1 person that day reporting. Some days we'll have 5. It's highly variable.
Why would bail reform affect day reporting? It seems like it would still be an option for a judge to send somebody to day reporting.
It is. It just seems like the initial response of judges, if it's not a bail eligible offense, is to give people the lowest level of supervision requirement for pretrial. So we're not seeing as many pretrial cases, and most of the people that we get in day reporting are drug court sanctions with a sprinkling of pretrial people. And I think they are related or hard to separate between the impacts of bail reform and the impacts that COVID had on just judicial thinking when they're looking at day reporting.
Okay. All right. I agree with you that it seems like it's a really useful tool, and we should be using it But I guess more to come there. Okay.
A lot of counties, I believe there used to be 6 or 7 counties that had day reporting programs, and we're one of 2 counties left that are able to support a day reporting program at this point. For a lot of the same reasons, just lack of utilization.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else for our probation and community justice? Seeing none? All right. Let's move on to our assigned counsel program. We have Lance Salisbury with us. Welcome, Lance.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be quick, not a lot to report. I can follow up on one thing on day reporting. One of the things you're seeing, I think, with bail reform is we have grant money now, case managers that are working with some of these people who don't qualify for bail in terms of needs, housing needs, substance abuse needs, and so forth. So we're probably catching some of that, which in terms of county finances is a good thing if it works, because it's state money and not Dan's department, but that may be playing a small role there too. But other than that, only one other, I guess, piece of news to update you on. We're in the process, by the time we come back again, we should have hired our 2 vacant positions. Those are state-funded positions. We'll have those people, well, they'll be hired, depends when they come on board officially.
Okay. All right. Questions or comments for our assigned counsel director? No? All right. Well, thank you, Lance.
Sure.
And as I said, we didn't have a very heavy agenda today. It looks like we're nearing the end, unless there's any other business that any of the committee members have. All right. We don't have to go 2 hours. We can stop. And I know, Shauna, you have somewhere you need to be, right? Okay, could I get a motion to adjourn? All right, Mike moves, Veronica seconds. All those in favor? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.